Okay, with Roberto Roy Nylund, the winning feature screenplay "Blood Red" is the conversation, and he is from the horror festival. Really interesting script. I wouldn't consider it a zombie horror, right? Like it's something more it's in that kind of realm, but it's different, I guess.
For sure. It's a little bit more medical based, maybe hopefully a little more grounded in medical science, but hopefully plausible.
So what's the pitch? What can you say the pitch in like two sentences?
Yeah, we have a scientist who is in the final human trials of an artificial synthetic blood product, and unbeknownst to her, a conspiracy is taking place, all in the same day as her company is having an investor day. So everything comes apart on this particular Saturday morning.
Doesn't it usually
And
it works like that all the time, right? Like anytime there's an investor day, that's when shenanigans take place.
Murphy's Law,
Yeah.
um, if something's going to go wrong, everything is going to fall apart. And so all at once, the final trial is ruined. Patients are experiencing incredibly violent symptoms, and the entire facility, due to a recent activist protest, is now under lockdown due to a new security system that hasn't really been tested.
So where did you like is it true that you according to the blog that you just started writing it in December? We're doing this interview in June. That seems pretty quick.
It was the quickest one for me. In the past, these things take a long time, and I've had other science-based scripts that are even really more rooted in grounded science, and you're really trying to get all the details correct. And in this one, well, you're a little bit free. I did study blood science for a bit as a layperson and saw, what are the dozen things that medical science can't overcome when it comes to a synthetic blood product. And this has been played out in fiction in a few different ways, even recently. So you're a little bit more freed up, to create a dramatic story around artificial blood. And so, yeah, it took about 6 weeks to get to a first draft, and it's undergone, several revisions, but the main story structure is still in place.
So what's your structure? Like do you kind of come up with a blueprint first and then start writing? What's the plan for you?
Well, in this one, I thought, what is this protagonist going to be up against? There needs to be three or four just massive barriers that they're going to overcome in trying to understand the truth, and also maybe a tease for a future second story.
Yeah.
And who's pitted against her? What is she up against? Yeah, I always loved the contained thrillers and the contained stories. In this one, I feel like it's my inspiration was Die Hard meets Resident Evil. So I did spend a lot of time trying to make the building, the facility itself, a character in and of itself. There's 8 floors, and we root for our protagonist as she ascends floor by floor. It's got a bit of a video game mentality, especially in the final act. And I hope some of that came across, where she also has an AI character that she has developed for years, who is a bit of a sidekick for her,
Okay.
and she's helping her along the way, and hopefully have tried to bring that character to life in the same way.
So, okay, so then basically, yeah, so it's got a like nice structure to it. It's a kind of identifiable structure to it. But at the same time, there's kind of original aspects and there's a little bit of science involved in too, I guess, right?
Yeah, I've tried to make a lot of fast-paced science where it does seem very realistic. There are, who knows, maybe 30 plus different blood groups, but there's the 8 primary blood groups that we all know about. I'm A positive. We know O negative is a universal donor. I learned that AB positive is the rarest. I thought O negative would be the most rare blood type, but it's not the case. So we're learning as these 8 patients undergo different symptoms why they're motivated to do this paid human trial and what happens to them. We slowly uncover the conspirators and what they're trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
Just when our protagonist thinks that she's figured out who's the villain, we get another twist at the very end, and we, in fact, don't know. until the very end of the story. We flash back to 20 years in the future, flash forward rather, and we finally get the reveal of what this has been all about the entire time.
I don't even know my blood type. I have no idea.
You know, it's an interesting thing because when you donate blood, you they tell you your blood type, and then you forget it 5 minutes later if it's not a big thing for
If it's
you.
not rare, I guess, right? If you're like a common blood type, you, but at the same time, maybe I should donate more because I never been in really knock on wood. I haven't really been in the hospital in
Right.
my 50 years on Earth, right? So basically,
When you do donate, they hit you up daily email sometimes when they have a particular shortage, and now they can personalize the journey that your blood type takes. I gave blood in January, and a week later they said I'm in Austin, Texas, and they
yeah,
said your blood is on its way to Houston to a patient as we speak. So
it's pretty
obviously in
cool.
this day and age, as we can control data even more and personalize experiences, that was kind of a cool thing to motivate me to donate more.
Then you can like talk to the person that, hey, you got some of your blood in me, or vice versa.
Maybe if you
So,
give them
but
a
it's like,
liver, then if you
yeah.
give them an actual organ, maybe they'll tell you who it is.
Oh,
But
they
in this
won't. Yeah, they
case,
won't tell you this. I don't even think they will. Will they tell you who the organ too? Right? Everything's confidential.
perhaps I think it
Yeah.
depends. You know, there's a whole pay it forward kidney transplant plan in America where you can donate forward a kidney and they will find a recipient for it. And it helps you. Maybe you've got a loved one who needs to be on that list too. And they get
Oh,
bumped up the list because you've paid it forward.
yeah, that's smart.
But
It's like because we're selfish by nature. We have to be motivated by in some sort of way, I guess, right?
well, yeah, and then again, you know, you're down to one kidney, and who knows what you're going to need
Yeah.
as you.
A friend of mine who acts and he's been in lots of readings with us. He donated a kidney to somebody to his friend because they matched.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and then he had to go
For
through a whole process to get healthy again, right? So to get back to 100%.
any operation comes with risks and
Yeah,
recovery. And so now in this world of blood red, you know,
yeah.
we've got our protagonist, Dr. Ruby Beck, who is giving the first presentation to these investors at the same time as this trial is happening, several floors below her, and explains that, can you imagine? Donation gets us only so far. So as I did research and as I gave blood a couple times during the writing process, it really became a profound thing that our whole system is on a razor's edge. If you need blood, and I've been in the hospital, I've needed several pints of blood in the past, and the system could be a little brittle, you know. And I'm getting actually daily emails right now. They say here in Texas that our blood supply is very low, and summer donations are historically also low.
Yeah.
And to imagine that we can only bring care that when blood is needed if we've got people who are donating it at the same time. It's a little scary if you're on the in that world.
They need a marketing campaign for like if they do it to like a Dallas Cowboys football game, they'll get all kinds of blood. So
Yeah, some on the field,
Texas.
but you know, here in Central Texas, they call it "We Are Blood." So they do try to make it, you know, a thing where it's community minded and we're all in this together. And if you have a loved one, or if you have need yourself,
Yeah.
and there is healthy, safe blood being delivered to you, you know, that's one thing you don't have to worry about.
Well, you got me thinking because I think I should do something, right? So, but and I'm not just saying that because it's like I thought I'm assuming that my blood is is fine and so but okay, so you're so like what is your so then what like obviously you seem to know a lot about this world. How what like did you do research or like how did you learn so much about blood? I guess that's the
I went to a lot of medical journals.
yeah,
I, you know, read questions about why can't we figure out a synthetic blood type? Um, while I'm a huge fan of novels and movies, I wasn't particularly aware of the premise of True Blood, for example. And in that world, They very referentially mention that an international team has created the synthetic blood. That's really not what the story is about. It doesn't focus on that. It focuses on the world of, vampires wanting to stay true to their world or
Yeah.
wanting to enter mainstream society. I still haven't seen Morbius. I think those are separate stories, and so I do feel like this is a fresh take, and it's fascinating what blood is made of, but also fascinating in that there are, just like other things about the human body and the essence of life,
Yeah.
I think there are people who find it to be so sacred that it isn't something that scientists should pursue.
Well, yeah. I think we've gone past that point, right? So like if anybody's complaining, stem cell research, whatever, right? Like, come on. Like we're I think
Yeah.
we've evolved past that point. So I think that argument is officially done, right? So
Well,
yeah.
in America, things are done a little bit differently, and there is still a lot of conservatism that's
No, I
finds,
get it, but
yeah.
it's at the same time people it's there's hypocrisy too because it has to if it has to do with their loved one, then they have no problem with it, right? So
Oh, exactly.
yeah.
Okay, for me, double standard, not for you.
Yeah, exactly. So like, but that's what I'm trying to say. It's like I think
Yeah.
it's sort of like, listen, there's still problem with like the analogy. So there's still problem with gay rights in America in the United States, but at the same time, it's 60% of the country is okay with it. That's what I mean by like, okay, I think we got still got improvement, but I think that we're okay with like that argument is kind of null and void now, right? So
100%. Yeah, we rights for thee and rights for me, and here we are in
yeah,
June as we celebrate Pride Month, and now in America too, we've we're turning the calendar back on reproductive rights as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, exactly. So then again, never say never, right? So, uh,
Now
okay,
let's bundle before you jump into the next question. Let's bundle this too in America with our for-profit healthcare system,
yeah,
because some of this was inspired by the events that took place in December in New York City. We had the CEO of a health insurance
yeah,
company gunned down in, broad morning light,
yeah.
and on an investor day for that company too. And suddenly he's cheered as, a vigilante, and maybe this was some sort of righteous act on his behalf. I'm not saying one way or the other, but that's never happened in modern
And
headlines.
and I see that you wrote your script at the same time too. Is that an inspiration?
Partly inspired by
Yeah.
our very challenging healthcare system here, and how people are deciding based on a financial spreadsheet who lives, who gets care, who dies, and that seems to be okay for them because
This
as
might
long
be a
as
leap
they're
of an analogy, but I was reading your script and it's like there's 8 floors. It's kind of like a Mario worlds, and Luigi. Yeah, Mario. Yeah.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, I got to remember how many floors are in Donkey Kong on the first screen,
No, but
but
in Mario, Super Mario, like
yeah,
there's eight
exactly.
worlds, right? Yeah. So yeah. And I think in Mario 3 as well. It's because my son is starting to play it. So yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. I have to go back and compare. I love that.
So that makes a lot of sense. But I like it like so the basically what I guess what we're saying in a roundabout way that it's a conventional horror, but there's thematics, societal thematics in the film, right? So
That I hope a lot of people will recognize,
sure.
especially if they're in America.
So why the horror genre? Why use the horror genre for this story?
As I start to play it out, we want some inciting this incident that's going to really trigger the action. And, I've gotten over my needle phobia, but I think a lot of people maybe are hesitant to donate blood because they see it as a little bit violent, just in its inherent
Yeah.
nature. And I truly do think that horror is that one genre that people still are attracted to see in the theater. It's that same kind of
Yeah.
movie that still brings people together. You want to watch it in a dark room with a lot of people and get
Yeah.
scared all together because safety in numbers.
Yeah, 100%. And I might speaking of needles, I always felt that anybody who was COVID, sorry, was a vaccine conspiracy theorist was scared of needles. That's what it was all about. So
That's what it all came down to.
that's what it.
You might have
I believe
something.
half of them, at least half of them, were like scared of needles.
You
So
might have something there.
yeah,
Maybe scared of face coverings too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's more because they have a hard time breathing, so they don't have patience, but it was the needles that they were scared about, right? So,
And talking about organ transplant, talking about molecular oncologists like our protagonist, somehow these surgeons can wear a mask for 8, 9 hours in a
yeah,
surgery
100%.
and breathe just fine.
Yeah, that's the whole point. But it is interesting where like as we're progressing so far in the advancement of the medical industry, obviously AI is going to change everything. The positives of AI is that it's going to transform the medical industry and there's going to be very few errors in surgery, etc., that they're already kind of seeing it, right? So and at the same time, there's this blowback. Every time it's almost like it's everything's yin and yang in life, right? Anytime there's this progression, there's always this blowback of like people scared or like they're like or like you said, they're against like stem cell or like creating blood for humankind. That's because they don't believe there's some sort of whatever religious connotation to it. I don't know.
I think there are people who fear the taboo nature of it too. And I think also with AI in particular, it's a product of human nature. And we don't really trust humans with some of these things. And,
Yeah.
I think that the creators of these products do try to dispel the bias that they concede is in the making of these AI engines. Um, we'll see how
Yeah.
that all plays out. We know how it's played out in the movies. It's
Well,
not
yeah.
ever been great.
Yeah. And at the same time, it's like anytime there's a huge invention, like say the internet, it's always good and bad. It's never like great. It's like in the history of mankind, every new invention from the printing press on, it's always good and bad, right? So it's
I wonder, yeah, what do we call them? The Luddites? What were they so skeptical about when the wheel came out? Like, I
yeah,
don't know about this wheel thing.
yeah. So like, because they're scared, it's fear, right? Like it's fear, but at the same time, it's like there's that idealism to like, oh, we're gonna make the world a better place, but we kind of don't, right? So
Yeah, yeah. So humans are just so curious by nature, and maybe
yeah,
you think that when there's an advancement, if you're not as curious or as smart as the next person, are you going to be left behind? So while this is going to like lift people
yeah.
and up, but are you included in that?
But for like the last 1,000 years, we've been very capitalistic minded. So it's all about making money and about like separating ourselves from the not so rich or whatever, which is silly if you really think about it. But this is where we are. So everything is capitalistically motivated, right? So
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned the internet. I think did you mention the printing press? So, who was against Gutenberg's invention? People who wanted to control knowledge.
yeah,
The smarter the masses are, then the
100%.
less they're gonna, believe their BS, right?
Yeah. But at the same time, they can print more and write more BS, right? So
There you go.
yeah. I was just gonna
Excellent.
say something really offensive.
It's
Like they
your
could print
show.
the Bible, right? So they could, I just did it. I said it. They could print the Bible in droves, right? So it's like I said, yin and yang. It's like good and bad, right? So
I guess it's all about who's in power.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that you're on to something, right? So it's really about who's got the money, right? Who's got the power in terms of corporate standing, I guess, right? So
And
but
so we see that in the first act of Blood
yeah,
Red, where
100%.
the control and the protection of this invention and the safety of its IP degrades the patient care. And when our protagonist confronts the CEO, he says, it's about funding. Uh, don't worry about it. Just get back to work and let us worry about this because we've got shares to sell today.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it, yeah. So there's, like I said, there's lots going on. Okay, so you wrote the script pretty quickly and then you started sending it out to festivals, kind of seeing a reaction, trying to get a reaction out of it.
I've pitched a few producers. I've had a few read requests. Nothing has really come out of it quite yet, but it's still
Yeah.
early. I've got a lot of optimism around it.
Yeah, but you're getting like we're talking right now, so you're getting some awards, I guess, right, from the
Yeah, I
festival.
am. I'm
Yeah.
thrilled, Matthew, with your festival's response, and that this story resonated with you. I'm definitely humbled.
Yeah, it's got a nice story structure. So you're how long you been writing screenplays for?
This month marks 3 years. So I've been writing
Oh,
as a
so you're
profession.
relatively young.
I'm kind of a
Yeah.
baby when it comes to it. So yeah, this is definitely a big deal for me. I've been writing as a career for, 25 plus years and always just a fan of storytelling in general, but found this medium and I thought, this really works for me. I think what happened is I have a couple favorite movies and I enjoyed them while reading the screenplay. And I thought, this is a cool thing. This is a whole storytelling vehicle in itself, enjoying the screenplay of beloved movies.
What writing do you do for a living?
I work in corporate communications, so
Okay.
it is, it's a form of storytelling. There's a beginning, middle, of an end. There's, you know, uh, you, emotions we try to elicit in that
Okay.
world too. I'm familiar with, corporate P&L statements that come to life in a story like Blood Red, where
Yeah.
you have executives trying to protect their assets, all the while but then you've got product managers who are concerned about the sanctity of their projects.
Yeah. So what, you're not going to get in trouble writing the script, are you?
I hope not, but hey, as long as they spell my name correctly, right?
So then you started writing like
I
3 years
do not
ago.
work for a biotech.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, I was thinking maybe you work in healthcare, like a private
I do
healthcare
not
system.
work for a biotech company that is currently investigating an artificial blood
Okay,
synthetic. No.
gotcha. By the way, from as a Canadian, it is crazy that there's no universal healthcare in the States. It's like it makes no
Well,
sense. Yeah.
in its defense, only 32 out of the 33 most developed nations have figured it out. So you got to cut us some
Oh, there's
slack
that little bit of a snarky sarcasm there. Yeah. Yeah.
a little bit, hopefully a little more than a little.
But I thought, where's he going with this? Because I can't, there's no defense to it. But okay, gotcha. Isn't that nuts though? Like I know you have more people than generally most countries, so there's more. It's more like it's more difficult, I guess. Let's put it that way. Like there's 30 million people living in Canada. There's like 360 million people living in the States, right? It's a smaller country too. It's a more compact country, so there's a lot going on. So it's tough. 50 states. Yeah.
Yeah, we're especially in Texas, we're a lot of rugged individualists, but it's a complicated system, and a lot of people make a lot of money through it,
Yeah,
and then
that's the whole
care
point.
gets
How do you stop?
sacrificed. Yeah,
How do you stop that? Right? It's like the pharmaceutical industry. You get to stop that. Too many people are
people
making
get
too much money.
shocked. Yeah,
Yeah,
people get shocked internationally when they find out in America your healthcare is tied to your job. Lose your job, lose your healthcare.
that's how they get you, right? So yeah, yeah, it's a big story because yeah, they tie you in, man. That's what it's all about. So conspiracy theory, I don't know.
Could be. It's been that way for a while. What's it going to take to break the cycle?
It won't. It can't. It's the machine has been. It can't be stopped. It's a powerful machine. It's like we're like young countries, we're like tugboats compared to the States, right? We can churn fast and churn quickly. We're smaller, we're more vulnerable, but you guys have got a big, your guys are a big, like, gigantic freight, like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard to move left and right quickly, right? So,
Yes, and you've got a powerful lobby. We can, yeah, we can go
no, but it's that's the
into.
analogy, right? Like it's just,
It's true. It's a big
yeah,
ship to
yeah,
steer,
yeah.
for sure. But you do have a powerful lobby force, in Washington D.C. that it's all about special favors and
Well,
keeping them.
you had two presidents in the last 30 years who wanted universal health care, right? So they had that's 16 years in the presidency, and they could only go so far themselves, right? So
Yeah, and most polling indicates that's what people want. But
yeah, and then
when it
exactly, and people want it, and you got two people, like two presidents who had two terms who wanted it, and then it still didn't pan out, right? So
it's better today than it ever has been, I think,
sure,
access
yeah,
to universal care, but it's still, yeah, it's like
yeah.
it's complicated.
But like you said, you have to have a job to have universal health care. And if you don't, if you start your own business, like say I did, like my wife had two C-sections for my children, right? I didn't have to pay a dime. So
Yeah. Well, what happens now, thanks to President Obama, there is a system of a universal healthcare marketplace
Yeah,
that is outside of any kind of an employment arrangement.
yeah.
So that's some progress.
And it seems like your Texas what's his name? Mavericks owner, Cuban is doing well with he's trying to change the drug industry as well, right?
He
So
has a prescription drug
yeah,
store that is pretty incredible when you compare prices and delivery. That's true. It's a
yeah.
big deal.
So
Yeah.
people are trying to change things, and he's kind of
Try.
conservative in nature as well, so that's pretty good.
I think when it comes down to it, he is a pretty progressive individual.
Yeah,
It's true, and he's a disruptor, and so I think that's where he made his fortune. And he looked at generic drug pricing and thought it doesn't have to be this way.
yeah, exactly. So we're going somewhere, right? So before we leave you, we always ask people in the blog interview what film they watch the most times in their life. Do you remember what you said in the blog interview? The film you saw the most times in your life?
I think the family film
Yeah.
when we were all together watching the most was probably Caddyshack because that was the one that got, our dad laughing the
Yeah.
most. And of course he would always, nod off before the
The
ending.
final.
Right. And that's a funny film if you think about the business of Hollywood too, the way that whole thing got filmed. It came in the wake of Animal House, which
Yep.
was an R-rated comedy that made billions of dollars and it had never been done before. So they tried to replicate that blueprint over and over, and Caddyshack was one of them. And it was sort of one of those movies that should have never ended up being made, and somehow they did it.
There's a great book about Caddyshack. I don't know. Did you read it?
I've read that book. It's
Yeah.
hilarious.
And about how they just changed everything in the editing room, right? They changed the whole story in the editing room,
Yeah,
right?
similar to Star Wars even, but
Yeah.
yeah, it ended up being completely different, and they were up against what was it, the Blues Brothers. So there was some rivalry between Harold Ramis and John Landis happening at the
Yeah.
same time. It was a little adversarial. Who could finish first with the best movie under the wire and under
Yeah.
budget. And that is a pretty hilarious story, but also growing up as a, 7, 8, 9 year old watching this movie, a couple times a year.
Yeah.
And then you read the story about behind the scenes. Good Lord.
Yeah, people will read the book. It's actually even if like it's just from a storytelling standpoint, it's a really interesting read. And it's like, oh, of course, like actors' egos, etc. But then kind of changing like something's not working in the story, and then so we're gonna change it up. We're gonna like restructure the script and redo it, and then basically with the footage that we have, right? So
Yeah, and there were a lot of real sensitive artists, who were feeling, a little bit excluded from the film work. And then you've got just raging parties every night in
sure, yeah.
in that era.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and it's like and Harold Ramis, who ended up directing it, so he ended up doing Groundhog Day, but he also co-wrote Ghostbusters, actor himself. Sorry, oh my God, the Bill Murray movie that just the the army movie. What movie was I got
Stripes. Yeah, he
Stripes?
starred
Yeah,
in Stripes.
that
Yeah,
came out
yeah.
like a couple years later. Yeah, that's a good era of like good great comedy, right? So.
Yeah, he was a big artist. Yeah, for sure. And the way that, yeah, in front of and behind in the camera. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really good film, like some amazing performances. But the lead character is not talked about, but it's like there's really great performance. Like Rodney Dangerfield's brilliant. I remember like being like 5, 6 years old and that movie came out. We like 1981, 82. Like my uncle brought it this 300-pound machine called the VHS and basically threw in that movie and these old people in my world they're just giggling for like an hour and a half. They were like giggling and it was
And
like
then you read the book and you find out that Rodney thought he was bombing every scene
yeah,
because people weren't laughing because it was his first time on a movie set.
because
He
you
didn't
don't
know you got to
laugh,
be
right? He doesn't have
quiet.
the crowd, he
Yeah.
doesn't have reaction, right? So yeah. And then Nights from Mary Tyler Moore show, yeah.
Ted Knight.
Ted Knight, yeah.
Ted Knight playing it straight. I don't
Yeah.
know what other actor could have pulled
Yeah.
that off.
And then Chevy Chase, like that's from my era, like the snarkiness. He created the snarkiness, right? Like the deadpan. You did it with the line about the healthcare, like the deadpan, sarcasm, right? So
That's right. And then you come to find out that Bill Murray and Chevy Chase couldn't be in the same room together.
Well, they got
But
in a fight.
and
They
what
got
did
in a
the
fight during Saturday Night Live, right? So I just finished reading the Saturday Night Live book.
Yeah, I think punches were thrown.
Yeah,
But then you get
punches
these
were thrown,
notes, you get notes from the producer that says, okay, but they have to be in a scene together.
which didn't serve the story. That's the only scene in the movie that didn't serve the story, right? So, but they needed to be in the scene, right? So,
Well, we learn about Carl the assistant greenskeeper's product methodology. He's well on his way to becoming, maybe a head greenskeeper one day.
yeah. See, like that. See, that's Chevy Chase right there, right? Like we just did. Okay, man. Well, congratulations on the script. Fantastic. And let's talk again when you write another award-winning script. And I wish you the best of luck with it.
Terrific. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it.